It doesn't bother me. I really used to care about people like what they thought of me. I care about what the general public thinks of me, and as far as the business is concerned, it's just that if people think I'm an asshole, then congratulations, I guess I am.
I'm not biased. I have criteria. Meltzer has no criteria. He has never put out a 4 to 5 point system of this is what it's based on. A system that this dude created, that this dude's actually now bastardizing his own system. And when he gets called out on it, he gets mad.
And I believe the quote from Meltzer, it's at the bottom by Dave's picture, was that he criticized the I'm paraphrasing, I don't want to get him wrong. I think he said gymnastics of the women's match for being unrealistic.
As opposed to that Dragon Ball Z finish that they just did on the Ricochet Osprey match.
Dave Meltzer, guys like that.
What the hell is Meltzer? No, little puke.
No! I really don't care what Dave Meltzer has to say.
You know, this guy Meltzer is so knowledgeable in this industry. Why has he not opened his own territory, ran his own business? Because the first thing he would do would put himself on top, make himself the champion, and everybody on the net would hate his fucking ass.
Were you in the business, or are you just talking about like you think you know something?
Well, I'm just making a point.
Well, you are making a point. Is it possible for you not to be speaking for just a second?
Go ahead.
Your opinion is different than what you put across as fact.
Dave Meltzer, who is without a doubt the greatest worker ever in the history of the wrestling business. Worker meaning connotation that he's a con man, to be able to put over a con, a fake, a lie.
A lot of these guys, the fact that they don't know proper psychology, they try to substitute high risk. And, I think that's a fault, because a lot of our guys, unfortunately, listen to the people on the internet who, the so-called, the so-called experts who've never laced up a pair of boots.
And a lot of people, I think, are still just stuck in that indie mindset. And again, it's where it came from. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you're more happy with some goof saying that you had a 5-star match and the building's a quarter full, we're not in the same business.
For the first time in his miserable fucking life, he feels validation. So that when Dutch or me or Jim Cornette or Bruce Pritchard or anybody else criticizes the product, Dave takes that way personally, because now we're criticizing something that he has influence in or over.
I think in the industry at first, I was, it was like pretty negative, yet, like Eddie Graham and Jim Crockett and Bill Watts and all those guys all subscribed and Vince all subscribed and read. So, but yeah, I mean, people used to tell me I was like public enemy number 2 behind Vern Gagne because everybody hated Vern, but whatever.
Oh yeah, y'all know what time it is. It's everybody's favorite goblin we can call Dave Meltzer. With all that said, I believe it is time. And let me just say first, because, I'm meaning this with the utmost and all due respect. Not coming at anybody. This isn't a shot on said individual. I'm just giving this is what you see very before. Even though what I'm saying is in the grand scheme of things will be unnecessary and pretty much a waste of my breath, because like I said, you're still gonna get the supporters, what we like to call, refer to as fanboys. They're still gonna come and berate me, tell me how much I'm a waste of life. Nothing, etc. But yeah, I still want to be able to say that this is as you see it. It's a fan's perspective, and even if it's what you don't really want to hear, and you still take it as offensive as such. But I want to be able to, I want to be able to know, I want to be able to lay it all out that, yeah, I mean, Dave Meltzer was practically one of us. I mean, he's the first, as I want to put it, basically, whether you want to call it the internet wrestling smart, or yeah, I mean, he's practically the first smart that pretty much started that whole, like, that in a term, in a sense. And why am I here today with this, and at this particular time and as such? Absolutely, because I feel like it's very relevant to when now I mention in today's professional wrestling landscape, and when you talk about where the business is at now and where professional wrestling is currently, I feel like you have to bring up and definitely have to put in a conversation, the same conversation as professional wrestling to where it is today, is that you have to bring up somebody like you have to bring up the name Dave Meltzer. Because even when talking about AEW, Tony Khan, in which I probably definitely agree too, that Dave, not just even AEW, but professional wrestling as a whole, that influence, even with WWE, it has gotten to where, I mean, me personally, I've always been a fan. Of course, I mean, like I said, I like to still call myself, I'm a wrestling fan. Even though that I enjoy and I very much, prefer over the wrestling aspect, I like characters, I like story. That goes within every form of media that I enjoy, that I prefer, characters, story, etc. And I've always enjoyed the entertainment aspect of it all when it came to professional wrestling. The wrestling always came second. And hey, if you want to classify that as of course, like I already know that I pretty much clipped my wings there. I'm not a real fan, or I shouldn't, it's a disgrace to even call myself as such, and I should be outcasted. You're not a real you don't enjoy real wrestling, as of course would like to put it. When I said, if you want to say that about me, then by all means, all the cards are right there for you to lay it. Good, yeah. Go ahead, buddy. Nobody's stopping you there. But I'm not afraid to say that I've always, because I've enjoyed entertainment in general. I think I'm not the only one when I say that, but yeah, at least when it came to like professional wrestling, being that I'm still a die-hard hardcore fan, but I'm more of a fan that I feel like that I have to say that I'm more of a fan of the entertainment aspect, at least when it comes down to it. The second always came the wrestling aspect. Just like as I said there, that not ashamed to really reveal that and say that I'm not gonna shit anybody else and parade around here like I'm holier than thou and try to, just like with Dave Meltzer, I'm not gonna shit on, I'm not gonna pick apart, I'm not gonna really try to disrespect and demean what he likes about what he considers professional wrestling, because that's his prerogative. That's whatever he enjoys is his preference. And I'm not gonna get on here and say that what he should like about professional wrestling, because hey, he has what he likes and I have what I like about professional wrestling, and that's that. And I feel like the problem is, and we go back to where that type of influence, when you talk about what type of the professional wrestling that Dave Meltzer enjoys, and whether it's just the indie spot fist, demolition derby type, just unchoreographed, the no selling type of the flippy floppity type of wrestling. And like I said, I mean that's his preference, and nobody's knocking him on it. But when you try to make it when you try to put that on a whole genre, and it as it should cease to be a whole genre, then that's where I feel like that's where we have a problem, and that's where I start to really, that's where I feel like we need to get to a point to where we need to check and look at it to where, that's not gonna work for me. And then you're this, because like it's doing now, what it ends up doing is because it affects the business as a whole. Because now, as I said before too, is to where you, of course, not only do you have AEW, a company nowadays to where you have like a company like Tony Khan, a boss like Tony Khan, and a company like AEW, and wrestlers that use that, what you call it is, which really what it is too, is that New Japan Pro Wrestling shit. And that's the type of wrestling that like it's an anime. Like, I'm pretty sure y'all heard that term before too. It's probably really started to move around. But yeah, that type of wrestling to where it just feels like it's ripped out of an anime, or out of, to where you see that, that's really unrealistic, and to a point to where, you never, you see this, it's like I said, it's almost ripped out of a video game or anime, because that type of wrestling, it just seems very ridiculous. And what I also want to say also, that I never thought anything of it. Like I said, with Dave Meltzer, I never really thought anything of it personally. It's not really my cup of tea, because like I said, I always enjoyed the entertainment aspect. But when you try to make it the entire complicity of the business, then that's where I feel like we need to draw the line, because that's the problem with today's professional wrestling. And you can say that about AEW, you can say that about whatever it is, TNA, and you can damn sure say that about WWE. Because that's how I said this also, that Triple H is pretty much the Tony Khan of the WWE. Because I feel like probably after Punk and Bryan, is to where you have where Triple H has probably spent an amount of years that's where you see where everybody, like this whole generation, especially the whole new generation of WWE fans, to where how much of a pedestal that the black and gold type of NXT really, because I feel like around that time, that's where probably like Triple H was looking at it. He was looking at the indies and felt like that, and he probably adapted that type of style, because they knew, of course, even at the time too, they felt even as stagnant as they already were. They already felt like they weren't going. They feel like they were entering a new era, and they felt as such that they needed something as far as to carve out a niche, because they were already moving away from, of course, the Attitude Era type of content. They needed, and they were already family friendly, so they needed at least some type, and that's where I feel like, they were probably looking at the New Japan type of pro wrestling, where that's, of course, where you feel like that, that flip flop type of, where you already know it's what I'm going to say as, and where that type is regarded as. But we'll just, for short too, where they were looking at that at New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that is that they feel like they could adapt that type of style into their product too. And that's where I feel like that's another problem too, is where Dave probably heard it plenty of times before, to where you have these wrestlers nowadays, especially like a Will Ospreay, like a Ricochet, that would rather be concerned about, instead of about a product, instead of on about how things, when being on national TV, when being in a place we like to call entertainment, instead of worrying about things that can improve the business even further, that can improve the company as a whole, professional wrestling as a whole, the industry, you would rather worry about on how many stars or how much validation that you could get from somebody that gives you imaginary stars, because of how many or how much you can jerk him off with that New Japan style of wrestling. And yeah, that's where, and that's, cause like I said, that's where it goes back to Dave Meltzer, to where I feel like he is one of the problems to where we have professional wrestling to the way it is. And that is because of the fact that you have, like I said, was where it's not just the wrestlers, it's the companies, it's the promoters, and it's everything in between. Because now, like I said, you almost have the top company, of course, because you have first place WWE and it's AEW and pretty much TNA being in third place, and they all have the same type of style. And like I said, I mean, you have with professional, where it's just now to where you have it, like I said, more nowadays, to where you get more newer just type of talent, like a Stephanie Vacour, and I think, like a Stephanie Vacour or Carmelo Hayes. Even though as good as, like I said, in a way that even though it's as good, probably as good as watchable as a Carmelo Hayes can be when it comes to his entertainment value, I feel like what you have to where you do talent is to where that's what they feel is the new standard, because that now, because even like I said, going back to where, because you even have the wrestlers like a Stephanie Vacour, and they were, and before they even came to WWE and probably the States, they were in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And like I said, it's not to be a knock, and it's not to disrespect them, because at some point they had a dream of not just being in professional wrestling, but to come on the biggest stage, and their granddaddy of them all, and that's WWE, to perform on the biggest stage of them all. And that's where probably like a semi-course that always had that type of dream, like a Stephanie Vacour. And I goes back to where, I'm sorry, but yeah, I just don't like, because you have it to where now everything is oversaturated with these type of wrestlers, or this type of talent, and there's just no in between. It's just not. And to go back, because I mean, let's say I never really it came in my rear view about this type of, because even though even then I feel like, I mean, I like Rey Mysterio, always, absolutely love Rey Mysterio too, but you go back to, of course, he wasn't really that really prevalent when it came to the entertainment, as far as having a character really, or entertainment really. It was just more, of course, because it was just him, being a luchador. He was more, whether it was that too, being a luchador, and that the other going to, like, of course, Mexico, and just the luchador, or the whole luchador, they have pretty much the same style too, only they're more, I feel like they're just pretty much the same as New Japan Pro Wrestling, or just that style. I just feel like they're more octane, more high octane than probably New Japan Pro was. But yeah, even more so when you bring up Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, like small guys, like, even, I mean, my favorite wrestler is a small guy, but it's like there's a difference, because Shawn, that's my favorite. Like Shawn, I feel like, because he was he still had a character. He was entertaining. He still put it on a way to where not only that he can, wrestle his ass off, but he still had to where whenever he was on television, you enjoyed. There was something about him you enjoyed, whether that was his charisma, his character that he was playing, and just the entertainment, the overall entertainment that he was giving you. And I feel like that, which is why even though Shawn Michaels was a small guy, he still stood out among the other small guys. And I feel like that's also too in a way that still, I feel like Bret was kind of still Bret Hart. Bret was still in a way, but he also kind of, even though he was kind of mediocre, he sort of was lacking a sort of skill in that, but he still sort of stood out in his own way. That's where I feel like I also feel the same way about Chris Jericho at one point in his prime, to where he also stood out in a way, in his own way, even being a small guy, standing out from the other small guys. And like I said, I mean, I love somebody like a Rey Mysterio too, and where I also feel too, Eddie Guerrero, even more so being better than Rey Mysterio, because the motherfucker, he was entertaining as fuck. I mean, he can wrestle, but he was also entertaining as hell. He had a character that gravitated to you. His entertainment was off the charts. I feel like anybody can tell you that Eddie Guerrero, but yeah, Ray, I feel like he had that, like, the potential. He still had the tools to where you feel like it was, I guess, is when it came to like a representation, being that when you talk about like a comic book superhero or things among that nature, but when it came to the entertainment value, I feel like definitely that was one of the things that he lacked in there. And then when you get the sort of small guys to where you have it like a Rey Mysterio, for example, and like a Chris Benoit, where that's solely what they relied on. Even in AJ Styles, like him too, I like him to death, but I mean, I gotta be honest. Like, was he really known for his entertainment as his characters, his entertainment aspect, or was it really about his wrestling? And I feel like he also too, he comes from that, not only the indie scene too, but that New Japan Pro Wrestling type of style. And where I said also too, where CM Punk is another one, to where he probably, like, he's also another small guy, to where, he came from that background, that indie background. Probably said it himself. But he had the entertainment value down to a T. There's always something that you can gravitate and enjoy about a CM Punk. Even though you don't like the person. Even though that's really, not relevant, but yeah. And that's the problem, to where I feel like also now, it's even also too, guys, also you can pretty much throw also kind of away, but we can't really say it, because like I said, also the same thing about Edge and Christian. They were also smaller guys, but they stood out, and that's proof to this day of what their just their legacies. And also going back to Matt, even though I don't really want to say Matt Hardy, because he actually tried, and Matt is actually kind of it's more Jeff Hardy. Yeah, it's more of his brother Jeff. It's more Jeff. Where I felt, Jeff is the pure example. Like, no, I don't know what probably anybody has told y'all. Yeah, Jeff can't. He can't. Whether it comes to everything about his entertainment value, he can't act. There's no really. He really had no character. Nothing about him that screamed charismatic. I don't know why. Yeah, one of his names that he's called the charismatic enigma or something like that. Where he has zero entertainment value. And I probably that's probably come to you as a shock too. No, that's a whole long story there. But yeah, Jeff is also one of those small guys that relied on the high octane yeah, just that New Japan Pro Wrestling, or no, more so that because you have a lot of guys that are trying to emulate it, especially that type of to where guys like Jeff then that he did that high spot bullshit, and where you have guys today, where they try to emulate it, guys like an Osprey and Kenny Omega that try to emulate it. Even you probably we'll probably go back to say that Kenny Omega has probably been in it for a while, probably even more so than Jeff, if I go back. But even more so than he's just now doing it on the bigger stage. But still, you still have, like I said, you still have guys like an Osprey that are trying to emulate what guys back then, like a Jeff Hardy and a Rey Mysterio, did on a day-to-day basis. And of course, like I said, no disrespect, but I mean it's the reality, and it's what we're dealing with today. Even and also another aspect too, that a guy like Mick Foley, that are guys that you have somebody like a John Moxley that is pretty much has all they have to rely on is whether you come to the Demolition Derby or the type of wrestling that is just, or it's not supposed to be done on a basis to where it's a parody, but you have to where somebody like a Moxley, that's all they can rely on, all they can do, whether you talk about blading themselves, or they're always bleeding and all that shit. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But yeah, like I said, that's the issue that we're dealing with professional wrestling today. And this may not, I don't know, it's probably because I wanted something to lead on, but it's probably not it's just all, but these, not really probably a perspective of Dave Meltzer, but it's trust me, all these things connect and are really relevant to professional wrestling today, and why that the type of influence of when we talk about someone like a Dave Meltzer, even though he really didn't start it, it's just that type of influence that leaked, and it's probably become everybody else's influence that has really poisoned the business. Because like I said, now to where everybody is trying to emulate, whether a company has tried to emulate the style, they're trying to outdo each other, which wrestler can do the most flips, which one can do the most, Dragon Ball Z anime, just fighting game type of style of, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's just that style that just seems like, what are we doing here? Is this even wrestling? It's just shit that seems like this belongs in, this doesn't even belong in wrestling. You can't even call it, that's not wrestling. It's not. And I know people however y'all been told, y'all new kids, when I'm speaking to y'all new kids right now, whatever y'all been told or shown, that's not that whole, that I said, whether I break it down to that whole Will Ospreay or Ricochet, that's that New Japan Pro, it's not professional wrestling. Like that, like I say, you already know what I'm referred to as that. Just that whole flippity flop, that anime type of wrestling, Demolition Derby, Spot Fest, that whole, like I say, you get the rear view. That's not wrestling. It's not. It's just an aspect that was ripped, or somebody like a Dave Meltzer too, that also that had that just a genre that started doing that originated in New Japan Pro Wrestling, that now everybody wants to emulate. And just like the newer cats on the block just want to emulate. And as far as when it has no core value. And that's where I feel like everything falls into, as when it comes, because you have to talk about Dave Meltzer, especially in today's professional wrestling landscape. I feel like when you have to talk about Meltzer, you have to bring up things like everything I just set up until this point. You have to get very, very informative, and you have to really dig to go back, because like I said, not to where it's just not, it doesn't just fall on Meltzer, to where I feel like it falls on everybody as a whole when you talk about WWE at one point, of course, being already as family friendly as they were. When you talk about NXT Black and Gold, when they had their whole period, and it being that NXT was Black and Gold and that type of wrestling, to where, wait a minute, I've seen this shit before. This is in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and WWE just started doing it. And now you have wrestlers today to where they emulate that type of style, whether it was from New Japan or whether it was this type of wrestling, to where it's just spots. It's not really professional wrestling, and it's just spots. But yeah, I hope that I really explained that in a very, even though I try to really go over the play, but I really try to explain that as best as possible as I can possibly be. I definitely been waiting to do this. We've been waiting to do this for like a while, to even more, like I said, being that how chaotic and just how deteriorating when you talk about someone like a Dave Meltzer. And because I also feel like that when you bring up his name, you have to bring up everything. Because like I said, you didn't have small guys. Like I said, that's to where the extent. But like I said, there's their whole. Like I said, that falls when you talk about someone like a CM Punk and how Daniel Bryan to influence the WWE to go into Dave Meltzer, to go into his type of thinking where wrestling is just spots, and to go into the direction to where you have a guys like Daniel Bryan or a Punk, where it's just it's 24/7 guys that all they can do is, where it also is not really wrestling, it's just spots, and it's just moves that try to trigger a cheap pop, but not really. But yeah, like I said, I hope I explain that in the best way possible. But because like I said, it goes into every aspect. To talk about Dave Meltzer, especially nowadays, you have to go. You can't really just talk about Dave Meltzer, especially. You have to really go. You got to go into the WWEs, the modern WWE. You have to go into the AEWs. You have to go into, like I said, as such, into like a New Japan Pro Wrestling, wrestlers like a Ricochet or a Will Ospreay, to really get down into the perspective. But stay blessed, y'all, and definitely because I know, like I said, I don't really upload that often, so you hope that I just want to get, when I send these out to y'all, I just want y'all to enjoy it as much as possible. But blessings to y'all.